What is up, you awesome kissers? This is CistReactZ guys. Today we're reacting to Game Theory, FNAF, Golden Freddy. Not what we thought. So, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe to the Game Theorists, and comment down below. If you guys want me to react to more Game Theory or want more FNAF content or content in general, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications on my channel, because YouTube has not been notifying people as of late. Alright, anyway guys, Bob, here we go.
Let me come home with you. Is there room for one more?
Oh my god.
Can I come home with you? Let me come home with you.
Oh yeah, by the way, I read all the FNAF books that I said I would read on the last Game Theory. So if you guys want me to do like a book review, let me know. Oh, this is supposed to represent Stanley with the dolls in his mouth? Oh god.
Room for one more.
Jesus Christ. I feel like the Ballora dolls are more puffier than
Hello,
that.
Internet. Welcome to Book Theory. Because if you have one moderately popular indie Smash game in your franchise, chances are you also have yourself a 10-installment book deal. That's barely an exaggeration. Bendy and the Ink Machine, 3, with more promised on the way. Hello Neighbor,
3?
6. Heck, it's a surprise that
6?
Baldi's Basics doesn't have an entire trilogy
I thought I was
dedicated to the
gonna say.
horrific backstory of the Jump Rope Girl. No joke, at this point in my life, I'm reading more video games than I'm playing. But of course today, we're
That's
not talking
insane.
about any of those other franchises. We're talking about the Grandpappy, the one that paved the way for all those who would dare to follow in its footsteps. 5 Nights at
The
Freddy's and its
Grandpappy.
8 books, as well as its 2 graphic novel reimaginings of the first 2 books. But here's the best part, your friends.
Wait, Twisted Ones has a
This
graphic novel? I
franchise,
might actually
books
pick that up.
were supposed to end at
And Silver
Fazbear
Eyes.
Frights number 5. We're currently at Fazbear Frights number 3. The end was in sight. That was gonna be it. That was the end of the line. Mystery over. But oh no,
Scott has
my
like
friends. Of
3
course
more,
not.
right?
Now there are 2 more final installments
there was an 8.
announced, just like every game after FNAF 3. I used to joke that the fan was the scariest part of this franchise. Oh,
Yeah, it always
no,
follows
not
you.
anymore, dear theorists. Now it's multi-platform merchandising.
Oh
So
god.
Fazbear Frights number 3, titled
So many things to
1:35
connect,
a.m.
I feel
just
'em.
came out, and whoo boy, there is a lot to talk about with this one. If you'll remember, Scott has made it pretty darn clear that this new book series is meant to help us solve the mysteries from the past, and that the stories are,
Solve the
as they
mysteries
say
in the
every
past.
book's official description, pulled from all different corners of the FNAF lore. But unlike the past 2 Fazbear Frights books, where the connections have been a bit looser, I suppose is the best way to describe a time-traveling ball pit that leads to a scene of some
Oswald.
1985 pizzeria murders, the stories contained in this one, in 1:35 a.m., all feel very strongly connected to, well, like I just said, every corner of the FNAF canon. The stories
Okay.
here are starting to show how they're connected to not only each other, but also how they're connected to the original book trilogy, and yes, how they're even
I've seen no
connected to
connection
the
with the
games, creating
with
this
the Silver Eyes
elaborate
series.
web of complicated animatronic death. But more than anything else, these books are starting to confirm things for us. Theories and
I just want to pause in the middle and say that Alec, from the Fetch book, had the worst outcome, becoming a lonely Freddy. Just gotta say that. By the way, if you guys want to see book reviews, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on
missions that we've had
notifications.
for the better part of the last
Just
5
saying.
years, which, you know, is kind of nice.
Alec-
to receive
Alec had it
some
worse.
level of validation. Like I said, it is a lot to cover, and so I'm going to cover this one like I've covered the last 2 books. Today's episode is going to be dedicated to a general overview of the stories, spotlighting some of the most important details for theory crafting, and explaining what I think this new batch of stories is trying to tell us about the series' mysteries. And
The
then
new
next
kid,
video, we're
that
gonna be
one's
doing a
also
deep
messed up.
dive into probably the biggest
hate Devin for
mystery
what he
of
did.
all 3 books so far.
I
FNAF's
just
newest
finished that one
killer
last night.
animatronic, the CistReactZ. This guy is actually really interesting, and
The
his story
CistReactZ?
is starting to weave through most of the 9
What?
other small stories that we've covered in these other books. And what he means might actually have some severe implications for not just the original trilogy of novels, but also the future of the games. Like I said, more on that next week. But for today, let's start with our title story.
Why does he have Enter as a
1:35
stitch
a.m.
rate?
This one is pretty straightforward. Delilah is a young woman with a tragic backstory.
She
Her
just
parents
goes insane
both died
with a
when she was
doll.
11, at which point she was bounced around and abused, sadly, in the foster care system for years.
Yeah.
Eventually, she finds a stable home and happiness with a man named
Her home
Richard.
looks
They get
nothing like
married,
that.
And Delilah, excited
Oh,
to
her
look
home with
forward to
Richard may look
finally
like
having
that.
a child of her own, so she can finally complete the family that she never had. Everything is going great in her life
Until Richard leaves her.
divorces her. Now she's alone and sadder than ever. And then she dies, trapped in a ventilation shaft after being tortured by the embodiment of the child that she never had. Children's entertainment, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so I may have skipped a few steps there, but it's roughly
You even
the
got one
idea.
wrong.
One day,
Ella didn't
Delilah
follow her in
finds
the
an
event.
animatronic doll named Ella at a garage sale. A doll that reminds her of the child that
She went inside the
always
event
dreamed
because
of
Ella
having.
couldn't follow her,
Quote,
right?
With brown curly hair, big dark eyes, and plump pink cheeks, the doll looked almost exactly like the baby Delilah had envisioned having someday with Richard. She'd been sure that she was going to be a mother, so sure that she'd named the baby before the baby was even conceived. Her name would be Emma. Delilah reached for the tag that
Emma.
hung on the doll's wrist. My name is Ella. Ella, so close to Emma. Delilah felt an odd tingle slither through her body. End quote. She buys the doll, in part because it reminds her of her almost never child, and because it has a built-in alarm clock. Emotionally scarring with a side of functionality, just the way I like it. Anyway, she sets the alarm
I even like how he made a
Ella
MATPAT
for
stamp.
1:35 p.m. to help wake her up for her shift at work. But the alarm doesn't go off. And just like that, Delilah gets her first taste of parental disappointment. So she does what any good parent would do in that situation, immediately hurls her would-be
Chucks it.
child into the nearest dumpster. Yikes, Delilah. Maybe it's better that you and Richard didn't have that kid after all. Anyway, that night she's awoken at 1:35 a.m.
God, look at those
by
bloodshot
Ella.
eyes.
Delilah assumes that she accidentally set the alarm for a.m. rather than p.m., which reminds me of the time I didn't bother to set the clock right on my Tamagotchi and was forced to scoop his poop every day at 4 in the morning. I can't imagine why he died. Certainly not my fault. Anyway, she tries to find the trashed Ella doll, but can't.
my gosh.
And from that point forward is slowly driven insane by the doll waking her up every morning at 1:35. I mean, you know,
Yeah, she went
1:35 is
insane.
still early enough at night to get a decent night's sleep. It's not
I don't know.
3 a.m. challenge or anything like that, but whatever.
I didn't really like that
knowing that
story.
she'll never feel safe again, she climbs
Just a
into
doll
a
driving her
ventilation shaft
insane.
in a building under construction and dies. Quote from the book, "She'd never wanted things, she wanted love." Oof, it is a heartbreaker. Man, the stories in these books so far have been pretty sad, but this one
tragic.
is just
Everyone's tragic.
In fact, all 3 stories from this particular book are just rough. Now, this story has 2 really important details in it. Details that seem to make
Like, I think the
Delilah's
Fetch
horrific struggle
protagonist was, like, the
strange
only one
nexus
who wasn't,
point for both
like,
the
in a
original
broke
book canon
family.
as well as the games. So let's start with the books first. In 1:35 a.m., the Ella doll is described as a
his name
quote,
was-
helper doll manufactured by
forgot.
Fazbear Entertainment. Continuing forward with that quote, the booklet had a list of what Ella was designed for. She could keep time and serve as an alarm clock, manage appointments, keep track of lists, take photos,
She
read
can also give you
stories, sing
drinks.
songs, and even serve drinks. Serve drinks? Delilah shook her head. Now, in the games, we never really
God.
get to learn much about Henry, the creator of the animatronics. But in the novel trilogy, Silver Eyes, Twisted Ones, and Fourth Closet, we get to meet not only his daughter Charlie, but also some of his other creations, including, wouldn't you know
God,
it,
that
a
baby
doll
design
named
looks-
Ella, who is
Wait, what?
built to serve tea. From the Silver Eyes novel, quote, outsailed Ella on her track, a child-sized
way.
doll bearing a teacup and saucer in her tiny hands
I
like an offering,
forgot.
end quote. Now, across all 3 novels,
I
we
read all
never
those,
get
man,
a
like
solid
3
physical
years ago,
description
man.
of the Ella doll.
That's not fair.
But
That's
in
not fair,
another
Scott.
book, the Freddy Files, which collects all the main information about the franchise, we do
That is
get to see
unfair.
our first illustration of the doll. And wouldn't you know it, everything matches the description of Delilah's little garage sale find from 1:35 a.m. Quote again, wearing a puffy-sleeved 1980s era bright blue full-skirted
Oh, that
dress
is-
with
that
pink
is mean.
ruffled trim and
That
a
is
big
mean.
bow around the waist, end quote. It's the same doll, meaning that
That
this
is
first
super
story
mean.
is happening in the novel timeline after the events of Fourth Closet. Somehow, this is the doll that Henry created for his daughter Charlie, who, I need to technically remind you, is his daughter, because again, remember, his daughter died at a young age, and he replaced her with a series of 4 robots that represent Charlie growing up at various ages, so
Yeah.
Ella technically is an early version of his own daughter. Figured I'd throw that little factoid in there, since, you know, this is a real and
So much to
totally
keep up
valid
with,
plot
and so much
point
I
from the
forgot.
novelized series of events in this very easy to understand series. But that's not all. While I was reading the story, the way Delilah decides to hide in the ventilation
Sarcasm.
shaft felt really strange to me. Like, why? It was super random, but also was
I mean, it
one
was
of those
random,
things that
but she just
felt
went
so
insane.
oddly specific that it felt like it had to have had a bigger purpose. So I dug around and found this for you. For your consideration, I present to you Night 2 of Sister Location.
So, funny story. A dead body was found in this vent once. Okay, so not that funny, but It's a story.
So, could Delilah be that body that was actually found in the vents of Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rentals? Maybe, but probably more likely it's alluding to that story from Sister Location rather than directly the same one. You see,
I mean, you
in the
never
book,
know.
We're told that Delilah's
The only
vent
one
is
who
in
died
a
in the
site
vent.
that's under construction, a 3-story structure that feels a bit like an office building. Sister Location, meanwhile, takes place in an underground facility underneath a residential home, so it's probably not the same building. At the same time, though, the story makes it clear that Delilah was drawn to this place. Quote, the answer to her plight was in here. She was sure of it. Someplace here, she was gonna find a way to escape Ella forever.
God, that's just terrifying. I can kind of, like, make out Delilah's eyes, like, right here. Oh, yeah, I have green screen. Like, you can, like, see her eyes kind of just staring at you. Yeah.
Time and again throughout all of these Fazbear Fright stories, we're shown people being drawn to the Freddy Fazbear locations through some supernatural force. So could Delilah, or whoever died in the vents of Sister Location, have been compelled to come there? And this story is just giving us a hint as to how that happened. Maybe. And whereas the Delilah Sister Location connection might just be me reading too far into things, that certainly isn't true for our second story, Room for One More. In this story, and stop me if any of this sounds familiar, Stanley is a night guard at a mysterious underground facility full of little ballerina dolls looking to escape to the surface. Ding, ding, ding! It's like in one...
To be honest, I thought those dolls were Ballora at first. Just like mini puffy little Ballora dolls, and that's why his body got all bloated and stuff. But I guess what MATPAT's saying is that they're the Minorina dolls, so I don't know how his body would get bloated with skinny dolls in his mouth.
Sentence, we just won FNAF bingo. Each night, he falls asleep on the job, wakes up to find a mini Rena doll on the desk asking to go home with him. Stanley falls asleep again, and when he wakes up, the doll is magically gone. Over the next few days, his arms start to swell. His throat starts to bleed. And yet, he keeps going to work, keeps finding dolls, and keeps falling asleep. Eventually, he learns that the dolls have been...
you think he wouldn't have side effects like that if these skinny dolls were trying to go inside of his mouth? I think they were just like puffy ones, like the plushies from FNAF 4 that were, you know, around the crying child's room on night 1.
Crawling into his mouth,
I think they were that puffy,
causing his body to swell to the point of bursting. The end. The moral of this story, kiddos, be a good employee.
And don't sleep on the job.
Otherwise, little animatronic creatures are gonna crawl into you and make
Stanley's
you explode
such an
from the
idiot.
inside out. What's also interesting about this story is Stanley's dreams. Each time he sleeps while on duty, he has himself a strange dream.
Dreams about the Funtime animatronics.
Funtime Foxy is a cab driver. In the second, the facility's power cuts off and he comes face to face with Funtime Freddy. And in the last one, Ennard is a dentist and Ballora is his dental assistant, which I would say is one of the strangest things to ever appear in this franchise, but then again, I turn your attention to this corner where we have time-traveling ball pit, anime Foxy, Yandere Chica. Anyway, this one is pretty obvious, right? Stanley is working at Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rentals, that underground facility from Sister Location, and the dolls crawling into his mouth are a parallel to Ennard using Michael's progressively decaying body as a skin suit in that game.
Sorry, I thought I heard some different music going on, but I guess he's mixing the music with another song in his background of the video.
Events, or something that more closely matches what we see happening in those ending cutscenes. That instead of Michael being scooped and having his skeleton removed and all of that at the same time, that our protagonist Michael instead is being slowly filled up with animatronic pieces night after night, giving him that progressively sickly look that scares all the people around him. Stanley's story even mentions this, quote, he staggered and stumbled down the sidewalk.
He turned gray. He turned gray.
Eyes stared, some seeming worried, others just
That's what I was thinking too when I read it.
Them to see another person suffering, which feels right on point with how those cutscenes were depicted in Sister Location.
Because he did have discoloration during the story.
At 1:35 a.m., it's story number 3, New Kid. That's the most exciting to talk about, at least for today's episode, because this one gets to the heart of what is still to this day the single biggest question of the series.
Devin is such a douche, man.
Is the identity of Golden Freddy. Let me tell you, I thought we had this one pretty well nailed down, that it was Cassidy, aka the vengeful spirit from Ultimate Custom Night. And yet, this story, well, it causes me to question a few things about our conclusions. First, let's go through...
I'm sorry for pausing a lot, but I just gotta say, like, it was so weird after, and I'm sorry if you got spoiled by the books, but MATPAT was talking about him, so I think I get to talk about him. Like, after, like, he put KELSEY in the suit and KELSEY died, I'm trying to figure out how KELSEY somehow got out of it, spring lock, scratch free, and then somehow managed to trick Devin to get inside of the suit and die in there. Like, how? What is Kelsey? I think he's going to talk about that, but still,
Quick
I don't
summary.
understand what
Devin
Kelsey might
is a
be.
ninth grade social loner alongside his only
Good
friend
God.
Nick. One day, a new kid in school named Kelsey shows interest in spending time with the two of them. Kelsey is good looking, he's charismatic, he immediately attracts the attention of all the cool kids in school. And even though Kelsey, Devin, and Mick all get along as friends, eventually Devin gets jealous of Kelsey because Kelsey has everything that Devin wants. And so to get some revenge,
Yeah, the
he
attention
lures
of the
him to
girl
abandoned
who he
Freddy's
likes but
restaurant
doesn't like
long
him.
forgotten at the outskirts of the town. His plan is to trap Kelsey in a spring-lock suit for a few hours to scare him, but, well, you know what's going on.
Which he knew was a spring-lock suit, but he still put him in there. Because he tried to put on the arm and then it got spring-locked. That was so stressing. Like, he knew what would happen if somebody, like, did something with the suit, but he still put him in there and then tried to say, oh, I didn't kill him on purpose. Like, yeah, you
The
did.
sheer mention of spring-lock suit immediately gives you a spoiler alert as to what's going to go down. Kelsey puts on
As soon as
the
I
golden
seen
Freddy
yellow
suit
bear
and gets
suit, I was like, oh,
skewered
no.
Alive. Quote, the blood saturated the bear's matted fur in seconds and began pooling on the floor.
Well, I like
Devin
the
stared at
transition.
the
I like the
moving
transition with the
It
blood
looked
effect.
Like it was a living thing. A thinking red liquid lake stretching out. End quote. Mick and Devin leave Kelsey for dead for fear of Devin getting in trouble, but they're not quite sure he actually died.
one time
Nearly
Mick took a stand
week
for
later,
himself.
Devin is convinced to go back and check on Kelsey, but when he does, he's in for a surprise. Kelsey
Nobody's inside the
vanished.
suit.
Devin eventually sticks his hand inside the suit's mouth to feel around for Kelsey's slumped-over dead body, only for the
Chop.
spring locks to fail again and crush his arm. As Devin lies on the floor, trapped and slowly bleeding to death, he gets a final glimpse into the suit and, well, let's just say what he sees inside rocks the foundation of what we know about this franchise. Quote, Devin wiggled in one more attempt to free himself. The mouth opened
like,
even more,
Kelsey's
and
body
Devin
was
got
gone.
a sudden glimpse inside the suit.
And then there was just another
Down
person.
low, past his arm, Devin could see a body, a dead body, just like he thought he'd find when he came back here to check. But it wasn't exactly like he thought he'd find. This one had curly black hair. The
Like-
body in the suit wasn't Kelsey. Now, there's a lot of weird things
Like,
about this story
how?
that I don't quite have answers for, but I do have some
We all
thoughts
don't.
about. First and foremost is the ending. You see, the book doesn't end with Devin's death like you would expect. It actually continues to a final scene with Kelsey, alive and well,
Going
as the new kid
to
at
find new
school
lonely
introducing
people.
himself to two boys. It seems, at a first reading, like this should be a flashback to when Kelsey first meets Mick and Devin at school. Like, oh, this was the fateful meeting that would eventually lead to multiple of their deaths. But it's not. This is
really
Kelsey at a new school meeting two new boys. In the story, Mick meets Kelsey first and then brings Kelsey over to meet
weird.
Devin, and it all takes place in a classroom. This closing scene, meanwhile, is outside the front doors of a school, and the two boys Kelsey introduced himself to are less social outcasts like Mick and Devin, and more like bullies. We're expressly told that the boys are snickering at the passing kids. Even Kelsey's first line to them is different. It implies that Kelsey has somehow lived on after his supposed Springtrap death in Golden Freddy, and now he's the new kid at yet another new school, introducing himself to two new kids. And the way that this final scene is written, with Kelsey scoping out the two boys
So
from
stressing.
afar before he approaches them, it feels like he's actively targeting loner kids to make friends with. Could this be Kelsey's attempt to befriend kids that most overlook and then lure them back to a Freddy's pizzeria for some
But didn't Devin
tragic
bring
incident
them
to
there?
happen? It seems like it would be a stretch, but let's talk about Kelsey himself. Mr. Perfect. Kelsey is a weird entity in all this. Throughout the
I'm not gonna lie to you. He might mention it, but Kelsey talked about bringing them to a barn at one part of the book, and it had like some historical thing. So I thought like he was gonna capture them and put them in the barn. Like, yeah, I thought Kelsey was strange myself, but like, I don't even know, dude. Like,
story, there are moments when his behavior is specifically called out as slightly off. Quote from the book, Kelsey tilted his head and studied Devin for a couple of seconds. For those 2 seconds, Devin had the weird feeling he was being evaluated. And
For
again
what?
later, Devin was tempted to stab Kelsey to see if he was a robot. Kids don't say stuff like that. Once they're actually at the pizzeria, things go surprisingly smoothly for Devin's plan. The line in the book even goes like this, quote, this was going even better than he imagined. He thought he was gonna have to talk Kelsey into trying on the Golden Freddy suit, but it looked like he was gonna do it all on his own. It was like it was meant to be. All of it seems to cast some level of suspicion on Kelsey's true motivations, and that's without me even mentioning the fact that his body just goes missing at the end of the book when it has been skewered and bled to death. To me,
Exactly.
it feels like Kelsey may just be our vengeful spirit from Ultimate Custom Night. In the story, Kelsey
Why would he
is
lure other
described
people,
as
though?
having wavy blonde hair and blue eyes. Now, we have a pretty solid idea that its hair is straight, with a slight wave, and it appears to be blonde. But here's the kicker. This image was created by inverting colors. It's what gives it that blown out and kind of creepy appearance. If you invert
Yes.
the colors of the vengeful
He really
spirit's
re-inverted
eyes,
it.
you get blue, just like Kelsey is described in the book. And it would
Excuse me, what?
he actually went and inverted this and seen a kid with whole blue eyes. Jesus Christ, I'm so surprised no one has ever thought to do that in like the large amount of time we've been able to find that. Like, what?
would fit the idea of a vengeful spirit, a kid who is angry about his own death, perhaps in an accident like we see in FNAF 4, or in this particular story, looking to get revenge on other kids who are similar to his original killers. He goes from school to school, presumably ones near Fazbear locations, to somehow trick kids into getting killed by the suit. The parallels with vengeful spirit even go to the moments right around Kelsey's death in the book. This is how it's described, and the sound wasn't the bad part. It was bad, yes, but the bad part, the really, really bad part,
Saw the
was
body
way the
just
suit
twisted.
started jerking in a spastic, horrific dance. It looked like the moth-eaten, mildew-blotched gold bear was convulsing, but it wasn't the bear, it was Kelsey. It's remarkably similar to the final cutscene from Ultimate Custom Night, where we see again an angry golden Freddy, presumably filled with the vengeful spirit, twitching off into the darkness. Also
Terrifying.
worth noting is that the spring-lock suits are apparently big enough for kids to slump down into the body. Devin, when he initially can't find Kelsey's body inside the suit, decides to dig deeper down into it. Quote, had Kelsey somehow slid down into the suit? Was that his hair that Devin could see? This, to me, confirms what we see in FNAF 4's storage room cutscene, the strange tuft of hair that's coming out of the body of the suit. Back then, we weren't sure what
We
this
thought
was
those
trying
were
to tell
wires.
us, what that tuft of hair was meant to be. But now, I think we can safely conclude that it is indeed a child stuffed into that.
Wait, everybody thought it was a tuft of hair? I thought those were just wires because, I don't know. Well, then again, I mean, if it's a spring suit and it's a yellow suit, which means it is a spring suit, I guess there wouldn't be wires just jutting out when you take the head off. So, okay, fine. I guess I was just wrong. I mean, it's an animatronic, something, a back room, with its head off. So, of course, I'm thinking there's wires in there, but whatever.
Body, and
I'm
that
just
we're
an
only
idiot.
seeing the top tuft of hair poking out. It would seem to imply that there was a victim before the bite of 1983, and that the crying child was somehow aware of at least one, if not multiple, of past victims shoved inside the suits. But all of this brings us to the obvious question of this story: the curly black hair
many
at the
people
bottom
can you
of the
fit
suit.
in a suit?
Who's that? And honestly, I'm not sure. Cassidy, which is what we've been assuming to be Golden Freddy's name this entire time, does indeed have black hair, but it's always been described as long and straight. In the fourth closet, we physically see
straight?
Cassidy, and she's described as this, quote, that's Cassidy, a girl with long black hair approached. And in the survival logbook, where we first learned of Cassidy's name, there's this girl who, again, has long, black, straight hair. And that's something worth pointing out, for as chaotic as the story in this franchise has been for all its iterations, names and hairstyles and colors of the victims seem to be fairly consistent.
Yeah.
Susie is always associated with her dog. She has blonde hair with curls and blue eyes. Cassidy always appears to have straight black hair. Fritz always has freckles. The names and the faces of the surrounding
Fritz?
characters may change, but the missing children all seem to be fairly consistent in both name and physical description, which is an important detail to keep track of moving forward. So could all of this mean that Vengeful Spirit and Cassidy are two separate entities? That two spirits might both be in possession of Golden Freddy,
I like those
or that
contrasting
Cassidy
colors.
isn't really associated with Golden Freddy at all, and is instead the identity of one of the other animatronics. Because in Fourth Closet, she technically wasn't the one who was associated with Golden Freddy. Honestly, I don't know. I need to actually review the evidence for this one, and I encourage you to do the same. The last thing worth mentioning for all of us to chew on is the mysterious slithering that's heard throughout this story. While the boys are exploring the abandoned pizzeria, they hear something inexplicable in the walls.
Pesticides,
Quote, while they were in the
bugs.
bathroom, Devin was pretty sure
the place
he
is
heard
old.
something slithering through the walls. He didn't say anything. From the way the other boys' faces paled, he knew they heard it too. They didn't mention it either. It's never mentioned again. Nothing ever comes of this strange little
something's in the
detail, but
walls.
it's
It could be
clearly
Springtrap.
important because more inexplicable, strange sounds
Because
come
Springtrap
from
was in the
Freddy
safe room.
torso after Kelsey dies. In a later quote, "Did you leave anything else?" He tried to ignore the fact that the scuttling sound was coming from the bear suit. Now, this is after Kelsey has already stopped squirming and twitching.
Did I forget
So
that?
again,
I mean, I did
we're
read the
left
book
with
yesterday.
Some mysterious force moving around in the pizzeria, creating these sorts of sounds. Is it Ennard? Is it the Stitch Wraith? Is it something else? Like I said, lots to chew on with this particular book, but as you can tell, it's given us pretty explicit information about some of the biggest questions that this series has had. Now it's up to us, as always, to put all those pieces together. And there certainly are a lot of pieces that'll start coming together next time as we start looking into the power of agony and the twisted timeline of FNAF's next newest murderer, the Stitch Wraith. So make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified of when that video comes out next week. And in the meantime, do me a favor, remember, it's just a theory. Again.
Remember when you said last FNAF?
Thanks for watching.
Wait. Okay. Remember when you said the last FNAF video like 3 years ago? Anyway, guys, that was the newest game theory FNAF Golden Freddy, not what we thought, by the game theorists. So if you guys want me to react to the next one that comes out next week, make sure you guys hit the like button, comment below, subscribe for more Come Kill Your Day. Let me know what you guys think about this video and your theories. Let me know if you guys want a book review on the 3 Fazbear Frights, because I will be happy to talk about what I thought about all of them. And yeah, turn on notifications, because YouTube is stupid. Peace out, guys. I'll see you guys later.